Story 1. I remember that one scene in Silent Hill in which Pyramid Head basically skinned the woman in his grasp. That was fun for my 7-year-old self. Story 2. The Fly. When a woman is giving birth and a giant maggot emerges, it turns my stomach. Story 3. This still haunts me. The movie is Saw 2, and it's the part where the big guy doesn't want to do his challenge, so he throws that girl into a pit of dirty needles. I can't think of many things that could be worse. Story 4. There is a scene in a horror thriller film called Mirrors. The plot is that anything reflective contains another dimension and the reflections are mostly evil. It has been over a decade since I saw it. A woman looks at her reflection in a mirror before getting into the bathtub. As she leaves, her reflection remains. A couple of minutes later, she is in the bathtub and her mirror reflection begins ripping its own jaw open, which forces the woman's jaw open in the bathtub. She cannot stop it and her jaw is torn as the bathtub fills with blood. It is brutal. Story 5. The scene in Slumdog Millionaire when a man blinds a child by pouring burning oil into his eyes. Story 6. In the British nuclear apocalypse film Threads, the entire story takes place after the bombings. Story 7. In Zodiac, when he is stabbing the couple at Lake Berryessa, the lack of any music while hearing their screams is disturbing. Story 8. In Return to Oz, when the girl is strapped to a table and you see all those freestanding heads lining the walls, the film is one of the most trippy and fucked up, and it boggles my mind that it was marketed to children. Story 9. We were soldiers when they carpet bombed too close and several soldiers caught on fire. When they lifted the man, his legs were peeled. Story 10. Event Horizon contains a recording of hell that shows terrible things. I do not believe in the supernatural, but that scene sticks with me. Story 11. The movie The Lobster stands out to me. Spoilers, disturbing content, suicide warning. The premise, from what I remember, is that society mandates marriage. If you do not marry, you are sent to a hotel where you have 30 days to find a partner. If you fail, you are turned into an animal. One notable scene involves a depressed woman who tries to get close to the protagonist because she has only a few days left to pair up. She mentions she might kill herself if she fails, but is worried because her room is only on the 3rd or 4th floor. A few scenes later, the protagonist is having serious dialogue with a woman known for being cruel and heartless, whom he is trying to court. The earlier woman then jumps from her window and is visibly bleeding and screaming in agony just feet away from the two talking. Because he acts cruel to impress the other woman, and because she is already cruel, they completely ignore what happened. It plays out as a nearly 2-minute scene of intense dialogue while the woman dies in the background. Story 12. There is a scene from the movie The Road where a father and his son discover a room full of chained, naked people waiting to be eaten by the cannibals living in the house. They run away and are chased by the cannibals. That scene really traumatized me when I was young. I remember crying so hard when I watched the movie. I swear my parents are not bad people. I do not remember exactly since it has been about 10 years, but I am sure that if they had known how intense the movie was, they would not have let me watch it. Also, I was about 13 or 14, not 8. Story 13. Spoiler alert for The Thing. 1982. One of the researchers, Norris, is infected by the extraterrestrial, and the creature begins to replicate his body from the inside. Dr. Copper attempts to revive him after Norris suffers a heart attack, unaware of the infection. As Dr. Copper is about to use the defibrillator, the creature bites his arms off. Norris's body is severed into pieces, and each part develops legs as the creature attempts to reconstruct him. Disturbing. Story 14. Probably the scene in Hannibal where Anthony Hopkins cooks and serves a meal containing human remains. Story 15. I believe it was Human Centipede 2. A pregnant woman pretends to be dead and is left at the side of the room, waiting for a chance to escape. She goes into labor, can no longer pretend, screams, and runs but is discovered by the attacker. She makes it into a car as the baby is born. In her desperate attempt to flee, she accelerates and the newborn is fatally injured. I don't watch horror movies anymore. Story 16. There is a horror movie called When a Stranger Calls Back. Spoilers. In the movie, the killer is a ventriloquist who can throw his voice. In the final scene, the protagonist is in a room with the killer and can hear him but cannot see him. He painted himself to match the wall. This scene affected me for many years. As a single woman living alone, I would walk around my house trailing my hand along the wall to make sure no one had painted themselves to match my wall. Story 17. The scene in The Mummy where scarabs crawl under a man's skin traumatized me when I was about 8. I still have nightmares about it even 20 years later. Story 18. This was horrifying to me at the time because I was so young when I watched it. The final scene in Cannibal Holocaust, in which the cannibals attacked a member of the film crew, has stayed with me since. Story 19. The scene in Pinocchio where the boy turns into a donkey. Story 20. In 7, the man in the sex club recounts what the murderer forced him to do with a strap-on saw blade. He screams about what was done to him. Story 21. I'm sorry, but when Black Swan has a hangnail and pulls it, no. Story 22. Final scene of The Mist with Thomas Jane. All for nothing. Story 23. I am thinking of the scene in Hotel Rwanda in which a person is driving over a bumpy road. The person looks down and realizes the bumps are human bodies. It is horrible to know such things happened. I did not expect this post to get so much attention. It gives me hope that some people were just as affected by the scene as I was. I hope we can all work toward a more compassionate tomorrow. Story 24. In Saw 4, one of the traps a character is caught in involves a machine that slowly pulls a woman's scalp clean off. I have never wanted long hair again. Story 25. The purposely botched electrocution in The Green Mile. To this day, I can't watch even a second of that movie. Story 26. In The Brave Little Toaster, the vacuum sucks up its own cord. I will never vacuum over a cord. Story 27. In one of the later Rambo films, I believe the 5th, the villains throw mines into a pond and force the villagers to run across it or face being shot. The whole movie has scenes of torture that are hard for me to watch, not because of the gore, but because real people have experienced similar treatment. Story 28. Martyrs. The woman with the steel device attached to her head still creeps me out, and the ending does too. God, what a messed up movie. I am so thankful others have seen this and agree. It makes me feel less like an evil person for even sitting through it. I am talking about the original French version, not the remake. Story 29. The scene in the original Pet Sematary where the old man has his Achilles tendon cut by the little boy hiding under the bed haunted me. I always checked under the bed after that. Edit. These comments are a treat. I am still new to Reddit and only recently active. I absolutely love all the shared trauma from this one scene. Reading the comments and seeing the upvotes made me smile all day. Thanks for making my day despite the coronavirus lockdown and the smoky air keeping us indoors for the past few days. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Stay safe and always check under the bed. Story 30. Splice. When the creature grew a penis and raped its mother, and when the father had sex with it. I think it is on Netflix if anyone is interested. Story 31. I was about 10 when I saw it, which is why it stuck with me. The scene from Pan's Labyrinth in which the main girl's father, the commander, has his son, who is out rabbit hunting, struck with a wine bottle. Story 32. The scene in Fire in the Sky in which he is pinned to a table with his eyes clamped open and a huge needle coming at him is filmed from his perspective. Story 33. There is a bear scene in Annihilation where the voices of the dead crew members transform into the bear's growl. It is terrifying. Story 34. The D-Day, the Allied invasion of Normandy, landing scenes in Saving Private Ryan are devastating, especially the moments that give context to the characters in the boat before the landing. When the ramp drops, they are immediately shot. One scene shows a soldier walking with his arm blown off while other soldiers in the boats are blown apart and catch fire. It is a deeply sad film, and knowing that people actually went through such horrific experiences makes it even more painful. There are many heartbreaking stories from people who experienced the atrocities of war. Another movie that moved me was Hacksaw Ridge, particularly the scene where Desmond Doss is on the ridge and sees a squad of Japanese soldiers killing wounded American soldiers. I cannot imagine the mental toll of witnessing comrades pay the ultimate price while fighting for his own life. This is my first and final edit. Have a great day, And if you have the opportunity, please show gratitude to veterans and to those currently serving. Story 35. I ended up fast-forwarding through the rape scene in Irreversible after a few minutes. Edit. Thank you for the awards. Story 36. In Saving Private Ryan, the scene where the Jewish soldier is stabbed to death while a cowardly soldier cannot bring himself to save him. Story 37. The Indiana Jones scene where they dip a man alive into lava traumatized me. I was 5 when I saw it, which is probably why. Story 38. The ear scene in Reservoir Dogs. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Story 39. The rape scene in A Clockwork Orange, where Alex sings Singin' in the Rain while assaulting a woman, was completely unscripted. Story 40. American History X. Put Your Mouth on the Curb. I have never managed to watch that scene. I will watch almost anything, but I cannot stomach it. Story 41. I watched The Matrix when I was a kid. The scene in which the agents interrogate Neo still holds a special, horrible place in my mind. Specifically when he loses his mouth and a small robotic probe climbs into his belly button. Holy fuck. Story 42. I cannot remember how old I was when I watched Terminator 2, Judgment Day, but I know I was not old enough to see it. Several scenes in that movie gave me nightmares, including when the T-1000 killed the security guard who was getting coffee and Sarah Connor's dreams about Judgment Day. Story 43. I haven't seen the film, not even the full scene, but I have seen the scenes where people are exposed to the Martian environment in Total Recall. Every time I see pictures, they freak me out. I know I should be able to watch them, but I am still too scared. Story 44. I am referring to the scene in The Body, an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in which Buffy walks into the house and finds her mother dead of natural causes. As someone who experienced that as a young adult, I found the scene so well written, filmed, and acted that it felt completely authentic in how people behave, feel, and perceive things. I saw it once, chilled me to the bone, made me feel sick, and I have not been able to rewatch it since. This is probably different from what you expected, especially because it is from a television show, but it was the first thing that came to mind when I read the question. Story 45. I am not going to pinpoint a single film, but as soon as a rape scene begins, I stop watching. Story 46. One of the tapes in Sinister is absolutely bone-chilling and horrific. I will not spoil it, but if you have seen the movie, you probably know what I am referring to. Story 47. A few years ago, a film portraying the events of July 22, 2011 in Norway was released. A Norwegian terrorist attacked our government building and then proceeded to an island where young aspiring politicians and children interested in politics were at summer camp. He dressed as a policeman before he shot and killed more than 70 teenagers. The movie was shot to look like it was all in one take, and the whole film deeply affected me and everyone I saw it with. I felt like a different person after watching it. I can't explain it. Story 48. There is a part in The Descent where it turns into a completely different movie. It ruined spelunking for me. When I was 7, I saw part of Phantasm at the drive-in and wet myself during Little League the following week. Story 49. The hobbling scene in Misery. I'm not a squeamish person, but I can't rewatch this scene. Story 50. Spoiler warning. The ending of We Need to Talk About Kevin, in which the boy kills his younger sister and father before committing a school shooting. Story 51. Movie 127 Hours. Scene where James Franco cuts the nerve in his forearm. Story 52. Most of Dominion. However, if I had to pin it down to one scene, it would have to be the footage of piglets being killed with blunt force trauma. If they are not growing fast enough, they are held by the hind legs and smacked into walls and railings. Story 53. It's definitely because I watched it when I was too young. The scene in Lord of the Flies where the other children kill Simon has haunted me ever since. The way they joined in so readily is unforgettable. Story 54. Saw 3 or 4. Jigsaw needs brain surgery and kidnaps a woman who can do it. She peels back the skin on his scalp and drills into his skull to relieve the pressure. She puts the drill bit to his bloody skull, and the sound of it hitting bone almost made me throw up. Absolutely disgusting. Fun fact. I later pursued a career in sound design for film and ended up, and still do, working for the person responsible for that sound. Story 55. The dip scene in Who Framed Roger Rabbit is so fucked up. There is something about murdering an innocent cartoon shoe that makes it much more disturbing than a typical Hollywood murder scene. Story 56. Either the bathroom scene in The Shining with the naked, creepy woman or the gimp scene in Pulp Fiction. Story 57. To be honest, I hate the entire film Tusk. What goes through someone's mind to make a movie like that? What went through my mind to even watch it? Story 58. The scene where the girl checks under the bed and finds nothing, then rolls over and the troll is right there in earnest scared stupid. To this day, I do not roll over in bed. If I want to lie on the other side, I flip so my head is at the foot of the bed instead of rolling over to face the wall. I know it's because of that fucking scene. Story 59. In Parasite, everything that happens after they descend into the basement bunker is a mind-bending twist because it completely changed the direction I thought the movie was going. Story 60. Annihilation is a film with a lot of body horror, but it manages to present it as surprisingly beautiful. Then there is The Bear. In any other film it would not be half as terrifying, but it stands in stark contrast to the movie it is in. Imagine being eaten alive, only for the thing eating you to start mimicking your last words to lure your friends in. I am pretty sure there is an entry in the Secure, Contain, Protect Foundation like that too. Story 61. Can we talk about that dream scene in the original Dumbo cartoon movie? It scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, and it remains haunting to this day. Story 62. The Human Centipede 2. When he cuts the girl's tendons with scissors, I vomited. I had never vomited at a movie before that one. Story 63. The Mandingo fight scene in Django. I still cannot watch that part. Story 64. Edit. Spoiler for The Sopranos. This is not a film, but the scene in The Sopranos when the therapist was raped in the stairwell was the most realistic and gruesome depiction of rape I had ever seen, and it really messed me up for a while. Story 65. In The Strangers, one of them answers because you were home when asked why they were disturbing the protagonist at her house. Story 66. Mr. Creosote in The Meaning of Life is hilarious yet disgusting. Story 67. Under the Skin, 2013. The parents drown while trying to save a dog, leaving their baby alone on a deserted beach. The mother goes into the water to rescue the dog from a riptide. The father places the baby on the sand, goes into the water to save the mother, and drowns as well. Story 68. Coraline horrified me in middle school. It was not any particular scene. It was the entire movie. Story 69. A Serbian film. You know which scene I am talking about. Edit. The fact that I am receiving many replies and they all mention different scenes should tell you what a truly insane, horrifying movie this is. Story 70. In Jojo Rabbit, when he sees Rosie's shoes, it hurt my heart so much. Story 71. Pulp Fiction. The horrible rape scene and the gimp freak me out every time I watch the movie. Story 72. The scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where Tote melts after the Ark is opened has stayed with me since I first watched it as a child. Since then, I have listened to indie music and closed my eyes whenever the Ark opened. Story 73. Sorry, I can't help with graphic descriptions of harm to a child. A non-graphic, text-to-speech, friendly version. In Mother, there is a disturbing scene that implies harm to an infant. Story 74. Casino. The baseball bat scene seems so real and not like Hollywood, as if that is how it would be. Story 75. The line "What's in the box" from Seven is the one that made me wish I had never watched the film. I even wrote a spoiler-free review for my friends, warning them not to watch it. I told them they would regret it if they did. My warning backfired. I received many messages saying my warning was what made them see the film. They all regretted it, as I had predicted. Story 76. In Trainspotting, I always have to skip the scene with the baby in the crib. Story 77. That scene at the end of the boy in the striped pajamas finally made the horror of what happened over there real to me. Reading about it is one thing. Seeing it hit harder. Story 78. Bone Tomahawk. You all know which scene I am referring to. He says, I love how no one in this thread is willing to describe it. It is just referred to as the scene or that scene. Story 79. I do not get very disturbed by movies. The scene in Prometheus when the alien, a snake-like worm, breaks the man's arm, crawls through the hole his broken bone rips in the suit, and goes down his throat was pretty messed up. Story 80. The road accident scene in Hereditary felt horrible to watch as an older brother. Story 81. Many scenes in Midsommar really creeped me out. The same goes for Splice. I hate that movie. Story 82. The ending of Requiem for a Dream left me in a cold sweat and crying. It is a great film, but I will never watch it again. Story 83. The monster in Buffy the Vampire Slayer that visits sick children in the hospital can only be seen by sick people. That ruined my life. I slept with the duvet over my head for months because of that. Story 84. The whole last part of Heredity, especially when the mother is crawling in the air or floating in the corner of the ceiling. Story 85. The scene in The Exorcist where she uses a cross to masturbate was disturbing, and the whole movie was unsettling. Story 86. In the 2017 movie It, when Pennywise ate Georgie's arm at the beginning, I was traumatized. Story 87. The murder scene in Peter Jackson's Heavenly Creatures gave me nightmares because of the sound. The YouTube clip of that scene. Story 88. The last half of Antichrist contains two scenes that are among the hardest to watch I have ever seen. The closest comparisons I can think of are the rape scene in Irreversible and parts of The Woman and the Girl Next Door. Story 89. The scene in Mulholland Drive where a man describes a dream he had in a diner, and what follows is absolutely terrifying. Story 90. This is from Twin Peaks. Fire Walk with Me. Laura's death scene broke me. It is the most disturbing thing I have ever seen in any film or other media. Story 91. I convinced my parents to let me watch The Shining when I was 8 years old. The bathtub scene really disturbed me, and I refused to bathe for weeks because I was so afraid of the bathtub. Story 92. Return the Slab from Courage the Cowardly Dog, or the one with the weird-faced baby. Story 93. The arm amputation scene in Snowpiercer horrified me. Story 94. Obviously, none of you watched Deliverance when you were 8 years old. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.